Dante, Tom, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Tom. How are you?
I am tip top. Apart from I thought it was Friday today, and it's not, so I'm devastated.
It's not Friday, yeah?
Yes. Well, it's how many years is it since we last spoke? Do you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. No idea. How long?
I reckon it's about 2 years. I
Right.
reckon, but it goes. Especially you run a business and life happens. It just goes like that. I
Yeah,
think.
no, I know. Life goes really quickly, though. And I think the older you get and the busier you get, the faster things go on there.
It's
Uh,
funny you should say that. There was a study I read about this actually. So each year gets shorter and shorter the older you get. And the reason for it is the familiarity. So we know that in this case, Australia Day comes straight after New Year, da 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 da, your birthday's here, and this happens, and what have you. Because we're so familiar with what's happening, then it gets shorter. So if you think about it, it's like when you're driving somewhere for the first time, it feels like it's a long distance. But
oh,
then you do it more and more, it feels like it's 5 minutes around the corner.
have you noticed? Have you noticed when you go somewhere, the way back always seems shorter than the way there?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it.
Ah, interesting. I always wondered why that was the
Yeah.
case.
They studied it and it all sort of made the pennies drop. So okay, that makes sense. So I think
Mm.
the trick is to make sure your ears are not so familiar with each other. And
Do something new.
yeah. So
I'm always
anyway, with that in
puzzled.
mind, obviously I know who you are and what have you. I'd imagine there'd be plenty of listeners to this that don't. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's funny. When you say who you are, you always answer the question with thinking, oh, well, what do you do? What roles you play in society, in your world, in your center? And that's that's a very interesting question. But I suppose from a roles that I play in my life and around my world, I suppose one of the biggest roles I play is being a father. I have a teenage daughter who is turning 14 in a few weeks,
Hmm.
and that's that. And the reason why I suppose I mentioned that first is because that has a very strong influence on how I make my decisions and what I do. To the point that I've left jobs and things that I didn't do because that was more important for me. So that's one role that I play. I mean, obviously, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I have a family, so that's important to me. Um, from a professional point of view, I suppose what I do is I am a lifelong learner. I think that's one thing that I like to think of myself of. Us, I own a business which I'm right now growing and developing, and yeah. So that from a professional point of view, well, I'm a construction professional, I suppose. So that's one thing that I definitely identify as a construction professional. And yeah, that's me. Does that answer the question?
It certainly does, and you're quite right. And we can't help but do this when we ask, what do you do? Whatever. We're interested in our occupation. It gives us, as you said, a place in society, and we can then we sort of we naturally pigeonhole. Okay, so that's where you are. This is what you do. You must be good at this, not so good at that.
Mm.
Blah 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 blah. You achieve or you're not.
Yeah.
And it changes our dynamic. It changes the context of conversation and what have you. From there, from where we can, that's where you belong. You know.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's interesting? The one thing that I thought about, what would you answer? How would you answer the question, who are you? And you go, oh, well, I'm the consciousness behind all those roles that I play in society. And the reason why I think that's very important is because it gives you a lot of agency for change. Like in the sense of if you want to change, you are not fixed to an identity, to anything. So it gives you that opportunity to change things around. I like that. I like that answer. So who are you? But I think it becomes a bit very philosophical, very,
Philosophy is the love of wisdom, essentially. But yes, it is. Um, um, it- it's an accurate answer, and it does allude to change and agility and what have you. And you know what? I wholeheartedly agree with you. Obviously, I've got a recruitment business. I hate the fact of being a recruiter. I don't want to be called that. I'm good at business, but my
yeah,
business happens to do recruitment. Um, and I like to keep that moving, keep it evolving, see what more value I can offer my
Mm.
my world as well, you know.
Yeah, exactly. What value can you offer? Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go into one of those other pigeonholes then. You've got a bit of an accent there.
Oh yes. I was born in Peru. I moved here when I was 24 years old. I fell in love, madly in love, and I decided to chase a girl all the way to New Zealand. And then 2 years went past, and then I moved to Australia. I think I was very lucky in the sense that I got a job offer there, and I got a job there, and I started working in construction. My first job was building bridges. I was working as an engineer, as a site engineer for a large construction company. I don't know if anyone knows it in this forum, but it's called Fletcher Construction, which
Yep.
is we were building a busway, which is basically a lane specifically for buses. Quite a good job, and I learned quite a lot about. I always think about my time in New Zealand as finding Kiwis as very smart people, very switched on, very ingenious people. So I learned quite a lot there. And then I came here. And I spent, I suppose, the first maybe 10 to 12 years of my career working in construction as an employee. I went up through the ranks. We started as a site engineer, then I moved on to a construction manager and whatnot. But something that always stick in my mind was I never wanted a job. So I never. It's always it's kind of like that thing that sticks for you with you from your childhood. Your parents say, "Oh, well, you should do better than I did. I always stick to a job. You should always start a business." And yeah, that's something I've been trying. I suppose I've been working on for the last maybe 12 years. So trying to develop my own idea, my own business, my own way to do certain things. And also I'm very annoying as an employee because I don't follow rules very well. So it's difficult to be my boss. But no, I mean, look, it's things that you learn along the way, and things that you learn, even how to manage your own self in those environments, I suppose. So yeah.
It's interesting. So, you've painted the picture of how you're kind of the naughty kid, and you're destined to be in business, and you've got your motivations, your why to do well, and what have you, which is for your daughter, your family, and everything else as well. You're the example. So they see what you do, then they want to also better it and keep that going. But so there's a legacy component to how you go about your day to day, and underpinning every all your ups and downs. But would you say your business is an extension of you and your beliefs, and your sort of your moral code, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I suppose 100%. You always do business the way you portray yourself. Like one thing, for example, that I would always think about of the way I do business. I like people to get paid on time. People to get paid. As one of my biggest priorities is I got to make sure that whoever is working for me gets paid. As a
Yeah.
contractor, whatever, as employee. That's an extension of me. The way I sort of one thing that I'm sort of very centered on is honesty and trying to be upfront about things, and that's the way I try and conduct my business, not in a naive manner, but like to a very strong to a very high extent. The other one is maybe I suppose trying to do the best possible when you're providing a service or a product. Like just making sure. Something I learned earlier on in construction, I think, was that when you have something in the back on your mind, like something in the back of your mind that's kind of annoying you, you don't know really why, you kind of like you have to look at it, because if you let it there, you leave it there, it sort of sits there, it comes back and bites you. So it's something that I always thought, if something is not quite right, you got to go back and look at it and fix it. And that's I suppose everything I do in my business is that way. I try and act in that manner.
So you're saying that a lot of your business and how you conduct yourself is intuitive.
Yes, 100%. You do learn a lot of things. You do learn a lot about making decisions, how to make decisions. I suppose the things that are not intuitive are the things that you're not naturally good at. And I think that one of the things that I've learned over time is how to have difficult conversations. Like that's one of those things that it's never been intuitive, because that is those things are sometimes you're lucky and you have a family where those difficult conversations are well had and well had, and you can do that and you learn that naturally. In some of the families, that's not so easy. So you got to learn those things, and the things that are not natural to you, you learn them, and that makes you, I suppose, better at what you do. You know?
For me, I'm a bit of a traditionalist in many ways. As much as I agree with learning every day and being as agile and progressive as possible, there's also a place for tradition. And I think what you're alluding to there is being a man. You know, is being that person that everyone else can lean on, and they know they're going to get the truth whether they like it or not. You know,
Mm.
and be that outright example setter, the pillar.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you said you use the word man in there, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it's is it being a man? Is it being a man or being a woman or being someone, a human being that someone can rely on?
So you've got the agnostic components of it. Yes, that there's always nice, irrespective of your gender, your age, and everything, that you can be someone to be relied upon. But in the family unit and how things are, people are different and have different strengths. Um,
Different roles, yeah. Yeah.
perhaps I'm just a bit too old fashioned for this world.
No, I mean, I suppose it's what you've been modeled, I guess. But then it's what you've been modeled. But sometimes you got to question: is that right? Because a lot of the things we do intuitively come from what you're accustomed and what you used to see and what you used to basically what's familiar. Remember how I started talking about how
Yeah,
familiar things.
yeah.
So yeah, whatever is familiar, that's the way you lean, and sometimes you got to question those things. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. And do you go back to Peru often?
Last time I went there was August. I go there. I try and go there once every couple of years at least. But the last time I was there only for 5 days, so it was very quick. I'm looking now at going in there, but it's hard because you got to match the right time at the job. You got to match the right
Yeah,
time at, well, I'm studying as well, so we've got to match the right time at university. You got to match the school holidays, so it's kind of like, it's a moving target.
yeah. It's hard to do. I think you got the benefit there of you've come from and you live in two bucket list countries. There's a lot of people worldwide that Peru's one of their bucket lists, and a lot of that down to Machu Picchu. Uh,
Yes.
Machu
Yeah,
Picchu.
yeah, it is. I lived there. I lived in Cusco for a month. I built a university there.
Okay.
I said I built it. I did. I got there, did the footings, got sick, and got sent back to Lima. So yeah, I was there for a couple of months. But also it's a beautiful place, but also a really dangerous place. There is
Yeah.
so much. I would say it in the sense that there is so much body, so much life, so exciting, and you meet people from all over the world that you can go out there Monday to Sunday and you forget about everything else. And that happens to a lot of people that actually go there. Suddenly you see these guys, these backpackers that never left. It's
Mm.
like they got used to the life there, and the life there is a party life, right? Like you just that's what I mean when it's dangerous. It just you kind of forget about your responsibilities there. So yeah, it's amazing. No, it's definitely worth the trip.
It's where the potato come from, if I recall my facts correctly.
Apparently, and I don't know this for sure, I've just heard this. Apparently, there is 5,000 different type of potatoes that come from Peru.
There we
There's
are.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's I don't look. I haven't got that from a reliable source, but that's what I've heard. So yeah.
Oh, I believe the healthiest one of them, it happens to be a purple potato, So
Oh, actually, yes, we do. We have a purple potato.
yeah,
Yeah, we call it camote.
commodity.
Yeah, that's it.
And
That
that
is it.
does that translate to potato or?
No, no, it's a type of potato, and it's like a sweet potato. And
Mhm.
there are sweet potatoes similar to the ones that we have here, and there are purple ones, which is also camote. Just call it purple camote.
There we are. There we are. Reminiscing now. Do you reckon you'll ever move back there? You're missing the party lifestyle.
No, I don't think so. I think that I've spent half my life here, right? Like so I've spent or nearly half my life here. So you get used to it. You get used to a life here. And in a way, and I don't know if it's because I got most of my professional opportunities here, but I feel like yeah, professionally I wouldn't go back there and work. Like it would be really weird, or things that I've learned here. I don't know. Yes, you can. Construction is construction everywhere, right? But whether you'll do the same things, will you do conduct yourself in the same manner, in the same way that you do business there. Another thing that I suppose I often think about Peru is there is an element of quite a lot of corruption in there, and that's difficult to navigate through. When you conduct most of your professional life in an environment which is quite open and honest, it's very difficult to go back to working in those environments. So yeah, I don't think so, no. And I suppose, hey, Sydney is like one of the best cities in the world. Like we are very lucky to live here. So it's hard to move from here.
Okay, all right. So you started building bridges in New Zealand. You're in construction here in Sydney, as you just said. What's your focal area? Because I know a bit about construction, as you know, and we do have a lot of listeners that are in that space as well. What is it that your business focuses on?
So right now we're focusing on building structural steel. So any structural steel extensions, buildings, precast panels, footings, that kind of stuff. That's basically what we've been doing for the last. Basically, that's been the focus for the last year. Before I was focusing on all the civil works and more. The business started initially as a project management consultancy, and that's a lot of what I've been doing with my time. But then now we're slowly growing into a space where we're doing our own projects, and I believe that these projects that have low labor components have a lot more to offer as a business. We can do the engineering, we do the project management, we try and deliver, minimize any. It's called an EPC, engineer and procure and construct. That's basically what we focus on. So yeah, that's been the focus over the last year, and it's going okay, it's going good. I can't really complain.
That's good. So obviously, it's well documented in recent times that where the construction costs are spiraling almost out of control. A lot of that is down to the labour cost and also the supplies, timber notably. But you see
Yeah,
around both of those big pain spots.
yeah. I mean, funnily enough, straight after COVID, there was a big spike in and you'll see that a lot of the businesses in Sydney and in Australia think that it's up to about 30% of businesses going broke, going bust in Australia are construction businesses. And that is mostly because all of a sudden you had all these fixed price contracts, and then construction materials went up by 20%, and labor, because you couldn't find it, went up by about 20%. So all the construction costs were sitting at about an extra 20%, and nobody could do anything about it because nobody take into consideration that in countries like Peru, for example, you have a clause that actually has escalation on them because it's not so stable. In countries like Australia, where you have no problems, escalation is always sort of kind of steady, and all of a sudden have this spike, you don't have those clauses. And there is talk in the industry about making sure that any contract that you sign now has escalation clauses, because otherwise you're in trouble. You can get in quite a lot of trouble very easily. Even one of the projects that I'm managing from a consultant side of things, from a project management side of things, I can see that they've gone through exactly the same. And sometimes in these bigger jobs, I mean, the job that we're dealing with is a $350 million job. It's quite a lot of money, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So using your crystal ball. So people, when they talk to me about the economy, yeah, so the landscape, we see it on the news. The news are always taken with a pinch of salt because there's an alternative truth which they're picking what they're picking. So I'll always look at it that way. But there is an element of there is a cost of living issue. There is the maths in the economy do not seem to be mapping out quite well. But it isn't about the here and now, it's about where we're heading. It's where we're going. And the sorts of companies that feel this first are people in the leisure industry. So when disposable incomes start dropping, that's a bit of a litmus test that things are going to go downhill soon. Recruitment, we see it a lot, okay, because people talk about, so we've got projects coming up, let's plan these hires and what have you, or people haggling a bit too much, or sometimes trying not to pay. We're a nice indicator of the reality of an economy, but so is construction. Construction, is one of those sort of like tsunami buoys, if you like, which tells us the economy as a whole. Hold a minute, there's some changes coming. So with that in mind, I may or may not be right with construction. You'll know more than me. How do you foresee the sort of economy in Australia specifically for the coming 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, I think one interesting thing is construction is about 10% of the GDP in Australia. So if you see a change in construction, you'll see a change in the overall, feel. It's very hard to forecast anything. What I'm seeing in the market right now is that people are still willing to spend money, but for whatever reason, they take in a really long time to go through from the moment they decide to start a project to the moment they execute the project. It's taking a long time. I've got a job that I've been dealing with pricing, it's probably about the 6th time I price it, for 6 months. And you think and we're only talking about, 1.5 million. Like, it's not, I mean, I suppose, yes, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in the construction side of things, and you go, and that's taking 6 months to get from idea to execution. So that is one issue, because companies can't rely on that continuous cash flow. What I was thinking before is, before you can think about that money coming in, you need to be starting like searching for those jobs 6 months before. Yeah. One thing that you need to be like, I suppose, forecasting all the time. Okay, in 6 months' time, I'm going to run out of work. I need to be looking for the work now rather than in 6 months, because so that's one thing. So slow movement of approvals and developments. It's definitely out there. It's definitely happening. Another thing is, obviously, the cost of money now is higher. Therefore, there will be less investment in certain areas or in certain aspects, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because if there is less investment in one area, there is more availability of those resources to move into other areas, and that could reduce the cost of resources. Like obvious supply and demand situation. You get less labor because they're all spread out across the country, and you get therefore lower prices. So or higher prices in that scenario. But it just, even though it's slow, it doesn't seem to be less in terms of volume. It seems to be still the work still there, still happening, but it just moves slower. I've got that feeling that it moves slower. So you need to be forecasting longer periods, I guess, and thinking about your cash flow very, very carefully too.
Okay, all right. And just pulling back to one point you were making earlier, and obviously this is me putting my recruiter hat on now. The parts of recruitment I genuinely like and always will do is people's journey, where they come from, their challenges, how they overcome them, and where they've achieved. I know for a fact, and construction is bad for this, okay, that overseas experience is difficult to sell into a business. Okay, so sometimes that's down to the building codes. It could be down to your existing network of subbies, your connections with local council, whatever it may be. There's a variety of reasons why overseas experience, if someone's a site engineer in any other country, really, is harder than if someone was already a site engineer here in Sydney and coming in. Okay. Now, obviously, you've come from a different country, you've done this, and now you've excelled with a business that's winning massive jobs, in all fairness. What would be your advice to those individuals listening to this, which there will be plenty for sure, of how to sort of make themselves appealing to, let's focus on construction first, but then just in general, trying to make it in the country and gain that experience?
Yeah, that's interesting because at about 2 years ago, I tried and start a business because one of the things that I saw at the time was like, oh, we're running out of people. Like, we haven't got people, and we can't, like, we've got the very junior staff, we've got people that are very senior, and there is nothing in between. Like, we have a gap there. Let's see if I can bring some people in. And I found it incredibly difficult to get people to, one, be employed and looked at. And there is a perception that if you haven't worked in Australia, that you can't do the job. And I think that's not exclusive to Australia. I think that's exclusive to any country. I think local experience matters a lot. The way it worked for me, and it worked well, was that the company that I was working with in New Zealand had offices in Peru. So that was a step, that was a link, and that helped me find a job in New Zealand.
So you're literally building bridges before you're building bridges.
Yeah, exactly. So that built the bridge, right? And then the next step from there was to build that. From there to Australia is a lot easier because the similarity between the work that you do in New Zealand and the work that you do in Australia is a lot closer. So it's a lot easier to find that. But a lot of the other things that I find and builders talk about, when I talk with builders and construction, senior people in construction, they said one of the problems that we have with these guys is that they don't know how to say something, how to express themselves. The language barrier is huge. You go, okay, cool. So the way to bridge that is to, and I always thought about this, when you go to a country and you stay in your culture and you just hang out with the people that you come in, and you don't sort of get enmeshed in the culture, and you stay in your own little world, like you want to bring, if I say, for argument's sake, I want to bring Peru to Australia, and I only hang out with Peruvians and we all talk about the same things, your circle becomes that doesn't allow you to, one, learn how people communicate here and learn the culture, because a lot of the work that you do involves other people, right? If you are an engineer and you're working with a foreman, you need to understand your foreman in order to get, that synergy. You work so close together and you do so many things together that if you don't understand each other at a personal level, you're not going to work, So that is one of the biggest things that I would say to people that come from foreign countries like myself, is go in, get enmeshed in the culture, understand what people are like in that place, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, and that will help you, that will take you a long way, I think.
So basically go and hang out at Bunnings and have a sausage sizzle and you're in.
Exactly. Go to a barbecue, like understand what they do. Like, a lot of, even though, if it's funny though about Australians, they're very strict about certain things, but also very relaxed about certain other things. And you go, so what is that balance, right? Like you can have a meeting where you have a laugh for 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you just flick the switch and you just do business for an hour, and you can flick the switch again and you just go be funny for about 10 more minutes. And there is that, but you have to be able to to understand what they're laughing at, what they're joking about. I suppose it's being enmeshed in the culture. I think that's critical for anyone that want to work here,
Yeah, no, I did like your point. Obviously, I wholeheartedly agree with getting yourself submerged into the correct environment so you can fast track your learning and your cultural norms and or isn't norm for you at that point. But I think it was quite smart. So if someone's in another country and is planning and wanting to come to Australia, is to maybe work or associate themselves with a company that has an international presence. So that's a really good way. It may even be a case that that's how they end up getting sponsored, because they're wanted here and what have you. So there's a known entity, a familiarity to make that happen. I think that's a really good idea. When we have people, it could be a construction manager from wherever, they come over, for example, for us, I always advise them, just go down the ladder one more step. Just go down one more, forget the title. Okay, so leave the ego to one side, and maybe even the pay scale to some extent as well. And all that happens, by the time you cut your cloth in that next layer down and you've eaten some humble pie, you fast track the construction manager again, and you go through it, because you already know that, but now you're linking it in with how things are done here, you know?
Yeah. But another thing, I suppose, that when you get to a senior level, a lot of the work that you do here relies on a lot of your networks. So I need to get a job done like that. I don't know how many contacts there are in my phone number, but there are over 1,000 numbers in there, so you go, okay, who can I call? And you make a phone call and somebody helps you out, right? But it relies on that. So if you come to a foreign country, you got zero network, you don't know anyone, you have to start somewhere, so that's I think that is important. I agree that you need to step down a little bit, understand how it works, who is out there, who is going to work with you, and then you can move forward from there. I agree 100%. Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. So you started off on this conversation, Dante, on when we got philosophical about what we are, what we do, and what have you. But your in was your daughter, who's 14 or turning 14 now. Okay. So has she got any idea at this point? Is she at that age where she started to size up, in a practical sense, what her career is going to look like to start off with?
Yeah. She's quite a good singer, actually.
Okay.
So she's been selected. Now they've got like a music fest in her school, and I think about 10 kids get to perform solo in front of the whole school, out of 300. That present it. It's like what do you call it? Like an audition, right? You go in there. So she's very interested in that creative field, the music, and the thing about it is that in that industry, there's an element of luck to it and all that, but it's very difficult to make it. So I suppose some in her mind, yes, it is singing, songwriting, something that she definitely wants to do. But if it is not exactly that, there will be some other creative endeavor associated with that, with music producing, music creation. At this point in time, there is definitely an element of creativity, and an element very, very strong link to creativity and music. And, she talks to me about keys and chords and all that sort of stuff. I have no idea. But she's really into it, and she understands it really well. And she practices. Like, there is not one day at home where you can't hear someone singing, which is luckily not me. Yeah, but yeah, no, look, that is definitely one of what she's thinking of. It's still early, but I think definitely I will support whatever she wants to do in that sense.
Yeah.
And then she's making a face now.
Are we going to get a little song now?
Do you want to sing a song?
No, I wanted to come in to say hi to you.
You're going to say hi. Oh, hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi there. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I've been told I need to get your autograph when you're famous and doing us, serenading us with some
you.
written tunes.
Thank you so much. He's so pleasing.
Yes. Oh, and the
Oh,
dog
we've got
also
the dog
came
as well. There we are.
in. All right. I
Thank
will.
you.
Yeah.
You
But,
might see. You might have heard my dog is snoring at the moment. He
Oh,
might
is
in the
it?
background. It's
Yeah.
he does it every time. He's either snoring or he's being needy when I'm doing these. So.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, well, listen, I think it's probably a nice spot to wrap this up. I think it's been quite nice to hear your story, and there's going to be things that people could take away from that as
Yeah.
well. If someone's listening to this and they and they want to make contact, who should be the type of person to make contact with you?
Anyone, I suppose. If you're looking to build a career in construction and I can connect you with anyone, I'm happy, to connect you. Anyone that, if you want to do business in construction and you want to come on board, find me up in LinkedIn. Just my name is, it's just my name, Dante Vinces. It's Vinces. You can find me on LinkedIn, and they're all welcome to have a chat about anything, and I'm happy to connect or support anyone in the business, anyone I can help, really. I don't and construction, because it's been my life for the last 20 years. I'm happy to connect anyone in that sense. So mentor anyone, I suppose. Something that brings me a lot of personal satisfaction, I suppose, is helping younger guys to build their careers and try and give them advice, as many things as I have learned in the process. So I'm welcome to have a chat, and if someone needs a mentor, happy to help them.
Yeah, brilliant. I appreciate that. So it's Dante Vinces. So I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
It's with a C, but the reason why sometimes I said Vinces is because it's easier for people to say, oh, it's Vinces rather than CH or whatever. Like, it's complicated,
All right, but listen, I've really enjoyed chatting with you and catching up. Thanks a lot for your time, and I'll look forward to maybe meeting in person next time.
That's great. Thank you for having me. Good to chat.
You.
Cheers. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.